hear that the use of this kind of data goes back that far. As you were researching this book and uncovering the layers, were there surprises for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I wrote a book about the Simulmatics Corporation a few years ago because I was completely staggered by the existence of this stuff in the 1950s and 1960s, and actually how sophisticated it was. Like they were pretty good at what they were doing. But what also really surprised me about, say, Simulmatics was uh, how morally concerned people were about it. Like when Kennedy won in 1960, Simulmatics kind of did a little kind of press junket and claimed credit for his victory. And then the Kennedy campaign denied having ever hired them. Like they realized it was a bad thing to have used a computer to win an election. I think that's a good measure of the distance between now and then.
We're talking to Jill Lepore, historian and author of The Rise and Fall of the Artificial State. Coming up, tech companies like Facebook and Twitter marketed themselves as the new public square, platforms that connect people and ideas. But how have those platforms affected the health of public discourse in the U.S.? And we want to hear from you. How do you feel technology is shaping our democracy and our society? Email us at 1a@wamu.org. We'll be right back.
I don't know if you want to hear this. I wasn't sure I wanted to read it when Sven Sundgaard just shared it, but a sign that autumn is, in fact, approaching. Today is the last day that the Twin Cities will have a sunset at 8 p.m. or later until next spring, April 17th to be exact. NPR meteorologist Sven Sundgaard says we're losing about 3 minutes of daylight every day. If you're not ready to let go of summer just yet, there is some good news for you. Highs across central and southern Minnesota today are forecast to climb well into the 80s this weekend, along with a chance of some storms.
Support comes from Ebenezer Senior Living, providing senior living since 1917. Ebenezer supports seniors who want to lead lives with longevity, health, and meaning. Over 100 senior living communities in Minnesota and beyond. EbenezerCares.org.
Music, books, film. Artificial intelligence is changing how we express ourselves and create. But what are the consequences?
A debut novelist has lost a $2 million book contract because nobody could prove that he wrote it without AI.
I'm Amory Sievertson. Is AI a tool for creativity, a crutch, or a barrier? That's on the next On Point.
And a couple of chances to hear On Point on NPR News. It's coming up this afternoon at 1, and then you can hear it again tonight at 9 o'clock. Well, if you're going to the Minnesota State Fair, which starts tomorrow, stop by. Say hello. The NPR booth is at the corner of Judson and Nelson. That's on the south end of the fairgrounds. Lots of good food right around the NPR booth, too. We've got events listed up on our webpage, and so you can sort of plan your visit around events if you like, or just come to the booth, say hi, spin the prize wheel. There are some really cool member thank you gifts to pick up when you become a member of Minnesota Public Radio, too. Especially exciting is this year's NPR tote bag. Every year we ask a Minnesota artist to design a special tote bag, and this year it's designed by artist Marlena Miles. We've also got a water bottle, some of Minnesota's iconic animals on it, all sorts of good stuff. Check it out, the booth at the Minnesota State Fair, the corner of Judson and Nelson. And again, more information about events that we're hosting at npr.org/events.
Support for NPR comes from this station and from Americans United for Separation of Church and State. Since 1946, AU has supported the First Amendment right of freedom of religion. More at au.org. From the NPR Wine Club, which has generated over $1.75 million to support NPR programming. Learn more at nprwineclub.org. Available to adults 21 or older. And from listeners like you, who donate to this NPR station.
This is 1A. I'm Jen White. We're talking with historian Jill Lepore about what happens to democracy when the functions of government are turned over to machines and automation. Her new book is called The Rise and Fall of the Artificial State. And you can add your voice to our conversation. How do you feel technology is shaping our democracy and society? Email us at 1a@wamu.org. Jill, one of the really fascinating things you do in this book is go back to the 1920s and a movement I think most people have never heard of, technocracy, which argued democracy simply isn't up to the task.
Has to be a top priority. But our bipartisan nationwide investigation that prompted our lawsuit clearly showed that Meta did not share that as a priority. Meta designed their apps to addict young people, period. Simple as that. Algorithms push users into rabbit holes to maximize their engagement. Infinite scrolling and near constant alerts were created with the express goal of hooking young users. These practices have harmed the physical and mental health of children and teens and have fueled what former U.S. Surgeon General called a, quote, youth mental health crisis. The worst part is that Meta knew. Meta knew its platforms were harming kids. Meta knew that children were active on their platforms, including children under 13 who are prohibited from using the apps under Meta's own rules. But instead of taking steps to make Instagram and Facebook safer to use, they targeted children for data collection, calling kids a, quote, valuable but untapped, unquote, user base. So in October 2023, we took them to court. Yes, that's nearly 3 years ago, and you're probably wondering why it took so long to resolve the matter. Well, Meta tried every single procedural trick in the book to keep this from going to trial. We fought back, and the courts knocked down every attempt that they made. We fought on, and now just 1 week after the trial started, we have a settlement. In the settlement, which is currently awaiting approval in court in California, that is the judge in the case, Meta agrees to pay the coalition states up to $17.1 billion. That is the largest tech settlement in the history and one of the largest state consumer protection settlements in history. Minnesota will receive at least $214 million and up to $307 million. But this isn't about the money, really. More importantly, is what we won for our kids. And now let me tell you about these much needed changes in how Meta's platforms will engage our kids. Meta will set a hard-capped 2-hour daily time limit for children ages 13 to 17 on Instagram and Facebook, with mandatory pauses after 15 and 60 and 90 minutes to interrupt endless scrolling. These limits remain in effect for 5 years. New nighttime blocks We'll restrict children's access from midnight to 6 a.m. so kids aren't losing valuable sleep while they're scrolling. Meta will eliminate push notifications on weekdays from 8 a.m. to 3 and during the school year so kids can stay focused on school. Meta will impose limits on features that kids use to compare and compete with each other, including beauty filters and visible like counts that have been linked to poor mental health for kids. All of this will be backed by improved age verification measures, better content controls, stronger parental controls, more safeguards against bullying, and tighter monitoring of content related to eating disorders, self-harm, and suicide. With the help of an independent auditor, our coalition of AGs will be regularly assessing these features to make sure they're rolling out on time and they're working as they should. Many of the provisions in this settlement align with the recommendations coming out of our reporting on emerging technology that the legislature asked us to put together a short time ago. We learned what needed to be done, and we got it done. So look, these changes are long overdue. But I give Meta credit for being the first major platform to agree to such comprehensive safety features. We don't want this to be the end of the story. It should be a signal to the entire social media industry that it's time to transform how they safeguard young people online. Let this settlement be a template for them to follow. Along with others in our coalition, this office is committed to seeing change across the industry. In fact, this settlement only gets stronger if other social media companies follow suit. If YouTube, Snapchat, and TikTok agree to similar terms to the ones I outlined, Meta agrees to lower its daily limits on children on their platform to 60 minutes for a period of 10 years, which is 5 more than the standalone agreement is, and will expand their nighttime block 10 p.m. through 7 a.m. This probably isn't breaking news, but I'll say it anyway. I don't take kindly to companies that prey on Minnesotans' young people to pad their profits. That's why my office sued TikTok last year for preying on young people with addictive algorithms. TikTok has tried and failed to get that suit dismissed, and so the case continues on. That's why we sued Juul and Altria for marketing their nicotine vapes to children, and then we won the largest per capita settlement of any state for smoking cessation programs. That's why we sued Highlight Vapes for making e-cigarettes that looked like kids' school supplies and got their products out of Minnesota. Earlier this summer, we sued the company that makes Loon Vapes and markets them illegally to our kids, and that lawsuit is ongoing. My office works every day to keep Minnesotans safe from scams, predatory businesses, and companies that ignore our safety to benefit their bottom line. My bottom line is that this office will protect Minnesota's kids, and that's what the settlement is all about today. Is Senator McQuaid able to join us yet?
She is still on her way. She'll be here in just a minute or two.
So maybe we can answer a few questions, or maybe is there something anybody want to add in? You guys are welcome to if you care to. Let's do a few questions and maybe we can get McQuaid in.
Can you talk about how the money's going to be dispersed?
We knew you were going to ask that. Good question. So the overall sum will be distributed based on a formula that all of the litigating parties agreed to. And so that, I don't know if anybody wants to elaborate on that. In terms of how Minnesota uses the money it's going to get, it will be given to us in chunks, paid out over 9 years. So it won't be one lump sum, but it'll be paid out over time. And one of the reasons that I'm excited about Senator Quay's presence here and her important role is because in the past we have cabined off some of the settlement money to devote it to certain purposes, right? And so we were able to make sure that some of the tobacco money went to smoking cessation. We were able to make sure that the vape money went to vape cessation, and we were able to make sure that some of the opioid money was set to voice dealing with the opioid crisis. At this point, and until there's legislation, it'll be general fund money. But the legislature can cabin this money off, and I think that they should, and I hope that they do. And there is interest in the legislature for that.
So it'll go to the general fund, but there's no stipulations on how that money must be used by the state.
Right. I mean, and that's actually the common case, right? Whenever we settle cases, unless the legislature sets up a certain way to use the money, then it's just general fund money.
NetChoice, which represents the tech industry, is threatened to sue over a bill that the legislature passed that contains some similar restrictions for social media for minors, and has sued over the warning label law. Does this settlement kind of help resolve that potential conflict at all?
You guys got any thoughts on that one?
No, it doesn't have effect on that litigation.
Okay.
You want to come up here and say that? Or not? Is that what you need? Or is that good enough?
Can you
They're all shy.
elaborate on that? So
Yeah, you want to?
yeah, there's the state law that hasn't taken effect yet that does similar things. How does that comport with the terms of the settlement and potential future litigation?
I don't think we can comment on potential future litigation. This is stipulated terms Meta's agreed to abide by in this litigation, so it's different than a state law, and whether or not a trade association decides to challenge the constitutionality of that law.
Can you just say your name?
My name's Jason Plegenkuhle. It's spelled Pleggenkuhle. I'm the manager of the Consumer Protection Division.
How much time does Meta have to implement these safety changes for 13 to 17-year-olds?
They have to start doing it right away, right?
That's right.
Evan?
There are
Yeah, come on up.
different forms of the injunctive terms. Meta has different amounts of time to fully implement them. There is like a sort of a ramp-up period, but essentially immediately they have to get started on most, if not all, the terms.
Do you guys try to quantify how much Meta profited off of youth for the amounts that you settle for?
As part of the litigation, the trial team that was in court in California, there were various damages calculations made, but that's, as you might imagine, really difficult to do for these kinds of harms.
A lot.
What's your name?
Yeah, I'm Evan Romanoff. I'm an assistant attorney general in consumer protection.
Evan was also one of the amazing lawyers on all of our opioid litigation as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I understand the money will be paid out over time, and there's a range that the total could end up being. Do you have a sense of how much each installment would be and when the state will start seeing that money?
Yeah, we should start seeing payments. Well, see, here's one thing to know about the payments. The more industry that comes into similar terms, the more money there will be, right? So one of the things that Meta said is that, look, we're not the only game in town. If you plaintiffs get more of the industry in this, then we'll pay more. So that's an ongoing thing, and that's yet to be decided. But what are the chunks?
Yeah. So I didn't have this memorized, sorry. The guaranteed installment payments, which are those 10 payments over 9 years for Minnesota, will be $21,434,104.09, $104.09. And so that's as Attorney General Ellison paid. The first installment is effective almost immediately, and then I think every mid-January for the following 9 years thereafter. And then there's this contingency payment if we can get sort of TikTok, Snap, YouTube on board, which would be an additional $9.2 million for each of those installments.
And we also resolved the Cambridge Analytica matter, which is about $8 million to Minnesota.
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
I know you mentioned some of the other litigation going on. How much of a precedent do you think this particular case sets as far as other tech companies that you guys are going to be dealing with?
Well, here's the thing. I think that, first of all, we have active litigation going on with several of these folks now. Certainly TikTok, that matter is in litigation now. There's investigations involving Snapchat, YouTube. And so the incentive is for them to come on board. The public sentiment is very clear. And, I think that all these companies see the handwriting on the wall. So I don't want to give you a percentage likelihood. They're all well aware of what's going on. They're all watching this carefully. And I think that we have reason for optimism to bring the whole industry into alignment.
Do you see this as comparable to the 90s litigation against tobacco companies, where we saw very large, wide-ranging changes across the board?
Pretty quick, yeah. So for you, just to illustrate your point, for years it's like you can't beat big tobacco, and then suddenly, Minnesota took on to big tobacco, and then at the same time and right around the same period, it all kind of got wrapped up. And so I see this as an industry sweep, but we're at the front end of it. So that's my take on it.
Would you elaborate on the bullying safeguards?
Yeah, well, if you guys might know a little bit more about it. Can you elaborate on the bullying safeguards a little bit?
I can attempt to. A lot of the injunctive terms are really technical, so I don't want to misspeak and would refer to the specific terms of the settlement. But there are lots of enhanced parental notifications as part of the deal. So parents will be notified, when their teen user is interacting with what are so-called like suspicious accounts or suspicious people, or when they're searching various things like self-harm content, eating disorder content, things like that. And then teens will also, I think, be notified if there's a chance that a suspicious person attempts to communicate with them. There are plenty of other parental notifications and terms like that, but Meta is committed to try to enhance their safeguards in those events.
Any news from Senator Makeway?
She's delayed in traffic, so I'm not sure that she'll be able to make it, unfortunately.
All right. Well, looks like we're probably out of questions. Oh, we got a couple more.
Could I just also ask about that lawsuit that's seeking to block President Trump's order limiting mail voting in the midterms? Could you just elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah. Well, you mean the one we dropped today?
Yeah.
Well, as you know, the Supreme Court issued a decision a few days ago saying that the U.S. mail could promulgate a rule and allow them to continue to do that. Well, they've done that, and the rule would be that there would be some federal approved vote by mail list, and we regard that as just unconstitutional. The United States Constitution devotes time, place, and manner terms to the states. They do it. It's in there for a reason. It's so that no president can just capture American elections that way. It is a clear usurpation of state sovereignty, and so yeah, we're moving forward, and we're confronting them on that. But the Supreme Court decision you heard about earlier is related to this, because that was about will the president be, because it wasn't a final rule yet. Well, it's a final rule now, and so we're suing them over it because it's on our territory as states. Congress has some authority to pass laws around elections, but there's nothing in the Constitution that gives that power to the president. So that's what it's about.
And then also that decision from Texas Governor Abbott is supposed to come through today. About that extradition. Are you hoping to hear something today?
We're all watching our phones, because if we don't hear it today, this 90-day period in Texas law, I think it's due out tomorrow. And that would be, what a shame it would be if somebody who shot someone through a door, injured them, into a house with a bunch of people in the house, and then lied to the FBI, and then was caught on tape as saying something that was directly contradicted by the facts. And then the man who was wounded ended up getting charged because of that, the false lie of the agent needing self-defense. And then they had to dismiss that case with prejudice based on that alleged false representation. So now all we're doing is holding that agent accountable, and it feels like the governor is harboring a fugitive, which we would never do, because that's also a matter of constitutional law. The Constitution is very clear on state extradition. It's a ministerial thing, The governor does not have any discretion. And so I'm looking forward to good news this afternoon, but I don't know what's going to happen yet. So we'll see what happens. But I'll tell you this, no matter what happens, we're never going to let Christian Castro escape accountability.
Last question.
I think she was next, then you.
Are you happy with the settlement terms you got in terms of protections for minors? Is there more for the legislature to do?
I'm happy with it. I think it's good, but that doesn't mean there's not important stuff for the legislature to do. And here's the other thing about that. Sometimes when we get a settlement, it's good to put it in statute. Because our settlement is time limited, but a statute would not be unless there was a sunset. So we're happy with it. That doesn't foreclose the legislature doing more, and I think it would be great if it was nailed into state law.
So these terms of the settlement are only good for the same period that you're getting the payments. They sunset at the end of the settlement period.
Most of the terms sunset after 10 years, but a couple after 5. That's right.
Yeah. So I mean, a statute would be helpful.
And you talked about how the state is going to be providing oversight to make sure that MINA complies. Can you talk a little bit more about that? And are you going to be, soliciting information from the public if they see something on their own accounts or their kids' accounts? Like, how is that going to work?
Well, let me just say, I hope the public knows that they can always contact the Minnesota Attorney General's office if they see something suspect. So that number is 651-296-3353. And so we encourage people to go online. You could file a complaint online. You could upload your own complaint. We have complaint forms, so we desperately need to work with the public to know what's going on. We can't be everywhere, but the public can be. So now there will be a joint state, there will be an auditor that the states have to monitor compliance. And but your question is very important. We want to and must work with the public to make sure we're getting full compliance. So I think unless Erin's here, she's not.
I think we got one more.
Oh, okay.
Just a quick question. Give a sense of the timeline of the TikTok lawsuit. Do you expect it to take as long, and also where is it right now?
There's not one lawyer in Minnesota who's going to put a timeline on when a case is going to resolve, even if it's in trial. You know what I mean? It's impossible to know. But it's ongoing, and we expect that it'll be relatively. My gut tells me it won't be too long. Do you guys have a better guess than me on timing on that TikTok?
Discovery is set to close the end of September, so we're in discovery right now.
Right.
End of September, is that what I said? Yeah. And then I believe, don't hold me to this, I think our current trial date is end of the year 2027.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So there you go. But anything can happen between now and then. Well, good. Thank you all for your questions and your attention and paying attention to this important story. Bye-bye.